talk about the UTEP Miners. Talk about the UTEP Miners. UTEP goes 3-5, and UTEP is, I mean, good for them to go 3-5. I mean, obviously that's a step in the right direction in the win column, and that's the column that matters the most.
Mm-hmm.
I remain a little baffled as to how they did that.
Yep.
I'm not. I really don't know. I mean, I know they beat a lot of bad teams, right? That's a
Mm-hmm.
big part of it. But I remain a little bit baffled because this was not a very good team. Let's go offensive grade. From an offensive perspective, I'm going to give them a D plus. They did get a little bit of offensive, of quarterback play this
Mm-hmm.
year. I thought that there were times in which Gavin Hardison flashed, but there were also times where he was a non-factor or worse for UTEP. This is a team that for a team that had inconsistent quarterback play certainly did not help things with not really having any sort of running game of note. I mean, they tried to hammer the ball to Deion Hankins, and he came, he was okay. But they tried to give him the ball, but he was a freshman running behind a bad offensive line, and they were not very effective running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I would say they had some. The passing game was able to light it up a little bit. I thought both Jacob Cowing and Justin Garrett were both excellent this past year, but this was also a team that only threw for 7 touchdowns. And this is a team that, in the end, you're going to be measured on how much you score. And they scored fewer than 24 points a game, and you can't live like that. You just can't live like that. I mean, you can if you have an elite defense. We'll get to them in a moment. But this was an offense that just sputtered. It was not very good for the most part. When Gavin Hardison was on, I thought that they were okay. When he was off, I thought they were pretty hard to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where we're at with UTEP. I think it was a step in the right direction under center in the passing game, but probably not anything to get super excited about. I think the future, we'll talk about this when we get to our 2021. I think the future is in the running game. I think that's what Dana Dimel wants to do. He wants to establish the run. Are they going to be able to do that going forward? That's kind of a big question. Okay, let's move on to the defense. And if you thought that wasn't very kind, let's talk about the defense. I give the defense a D.
Yeah.
It was ugly at times. I will say that they were not terrible against the run. They were
Yeah.
okay against the run. Not great. We'll be very clear.
Mm-mm.
Not great, but they were okay. That front seven: Stephen Forrester, Tyrese Knight, Keenan Stewart. They had some playmakers up there in the front,
Mm-hmm.
as far as against the run is concerned. Now, it didn't mean they affected the quarterback. They were not very good at sacking the quarterback. They did not make plays in the secondary basically ever. They gave up big play after big play, and they did not pick off the ball. Like, they did not come up with plays. I mean, they were one of the worst turnover margin teams in the country. In fact, they were 119th in takeaways. They were bad as far as taking the ball away. Overall, look, the numbers are not very. A lot of this is what helps is that they stayed on the field a long time. They ate up a lot of time possession, and so as a result, as a result, like the of total offense is actually relatively. It's not good. It's 73rd in the nation,
Mm-hmm.
but like when you take a look at like points per play, right? Points per play, they were 115th in the nation. Like, they were not good defensively. And especially in that secondary, if they were not getting the quarterback, and more often than not, they were not. They're not getting the quarterback, then they were not very effective. And the defense ended up kind of, not being very good, which has kind of unfortunately
Right.
been a bit of a calling card for UTEP lately. So that defense is not able to come up with big plays.
Well, and the frustrating
On the
part
defense,
about
good.
their defensive backs absolutely producing nothing is I feel like when you look at like the SEC, you expect like there's going to be some difference, no offense, but between Alabama and Mizzou. When you look at Conference USA, there should not be that great of a margin of in between. Like, yeah, one team might have a superstar wide receiver that it's just going to torch some defensive backs, but overall there shouldn't be that much of a gap in between a defensive back and a wide receiver at the Conference USA level, and
No,
it just
it
was
shouldn't be. No, there shouldn't
embarrassing.
be that gulf. There shouldn't be that gulf. And the secondary looks it has looked undermanned, plain and simple. It's looked undermanned. Let's talk about the team MVP. I'm going to go with Jacob Cowing, their wide receiver. Again, I thought he was their most. You can go with Deion Hankins. He was probably the guy that he's the workhorse. I mean, he carried the ball 121 times. But I would say that the most effective guy was Jacob Cowing. He was a team leader in receptions, team leader in receiving yards, and then he was tied for the team lead in passing or receiving touchdowns. I think he was probably the guy that when he was going, that meant that the passing game was going. When the passing game was going, that meant they were playing the best that they could. And so I would say Jacob Cowing is probably the most valuable player for them. All right. Now let's take a look at what they've got coming back. And I've got some bad news. It's not superb what they've got coming back. But this is a team that I think will have they're losing some guys in the transfer portal, but they're also I think that they want to make some moves and get a little bit older. Especially I think they want to get a little bit older on the offensive line. But this is a team that I think from an offensive perspective, we know what they want to do. We know that they want to be the team that, we know they want to grind it out on the ground. They bring back, I think, 4 of their starting offensive line. They bring back Deion Hankins. They bring back Joshua Fields. They bring back a lot of those guys. Gavin Hardison is back, right? Jacob Cowing is back. They are going to, they're going to have guys to step up and make plays on the offensive side. The defense, I mean, look, they're losing a lot of their production. They were relatively senior heavy last year.
Which
and they're losing a lot of that's the question, right? They're losing a lot of that production. Can they kind of take that step forward and bring in the youth movement? Can they get some guys to step up? That's kind of a big question. Look, the defense has to take a step forward. Next year, they're going to have to take a step forward with a relatively young group. That's normally not a good kind of, confluence of events, but we'll see. We don't know. Look, I don't know what the status of Dana Dimmel is out there. I know he signed a relatively guaranteed contract out there, and I think he has assurances from the administration that he's going to get some time, but he's had some time. And they've got to start showing some results, or else anybody is going to get tired of watching this. Now, 3 and 5, I think is a step in the right direction in the win column, but it's got to look better too.
I agree with what you said earlier about the biggest thing I feel like on the offensive side of the ball is they've got to get that run game going, because I feel like if you look at past UTEP offenses, that's really typically the only thing they ever had going for them in the first place. And it's like now when you find that quarterback that is able to flash, if you can get a consistent run game, maybe stuff starts to mesh a little better.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you think about like when they've had great offenses, a lot of it's been, guys like Aaron Jones obviously springs to mind, but like before that, they were able to have some decent quarterback play in the Mike Price era. It's not impossible to throw the ball effectively out there in El Paso, but they have not had that right guy. And I think a lot of it also comes down to in a place that they have just not, basically since Will Hernandez left, they have not been able to fill in the gaps and have that kind of strong, dominant offensive line, which is always what they wanted. That's what Dana Dimmel's always wanted to do. So Dana Dimmel wanted to do. So Sean Kugler wanted to do. He was able to get Will Hernandez. That's about it, basically, as far as elite offensive line is concerned. So it's frustrating to see, because I desperately want to see UTEP perform well, but it's just next year, unless that defense really grows up in a hurry, it could be another troublesome year for the Miners in El Paso.